Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio. We're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Across from me, as you cannot see on YouTube, unfortunately, is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I am doing very well today. We had a couple of World Series games that we get to break down today. One amazing game, one game.
Yeah, it's
that
just
kind of
a game
existed
that happened.
But yeah, I mean, so far my prediction looks pretty good. Your prediction is on track as well. I had the Astros, the Phillies taking game one, the Astros taking game two. That's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly I wouldn't say it happened the way I thought it would, but you know, game one was fantastic. You know, very epic game that really could have gone either way. Game two was kind of over pretty quickly, it felt like.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, we'll start off by talking about game one, but you know, to a casual viewer, like in game one, you could have thought, you know, 5-0, Verlander's on the mound. This game's kind of over,
yeah.
and then it wasn't, because you know Justin Verlander he's had 3 playoff starts now this year, and 2 of them have just gone kind of haywire.
2 out of the 3, yeah.
2 out of the 3, yeah. I mean, we could start off by talking about, 2 number 1 guys, Aaron Nola and Justin Verlander, just not performing how they should.
I feel bad for Kyle Tucker, man. He had a great game that will not be remembered.
Right, yeah. Kyle Tucker got the first run of the ball game with a home run, and then what was it? Yuli Gurriel had a RBI single,
yes.
And then Kyle Tucker had a 3-run home run. Made it 5-0 in the bottom of the third, and then top of the fourth, the Phillies come storming back, and they're hitting the ball hard. Doing some good things against Justin Verlander, where you know top of the fourth, a lot of it is happening with 2 outs as well. All the scoring happened with 2 outs, but it was first and third. With 2 outs, there was a single. There was a man on second. Bryce Harper was on second after Rhys Hoskins was on second after a single. Mm-hmm. Then Bryce Harper singled. Then Nick Castellanos hit an RBI single. That one you can't really put on Verlander at all, because I mean it was like 1 foot below the ground or 1 foot above the ground.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, and then Alec Boehm hits a 2-run double to make it 5-3, and it's like, all right, this is a game.
And then in the next inning, it was the 5th, I believe, JT Realmuto hits a 2-run double into the left center field gap. A ball that he stung pretty well. I thought it was gone off the bat. That ended up tying the game. JT Realmuto we'll get into later, but he had a big game. And then it came down to bullpens. And Phillies bullpen, you know, it's obviously been a major talking point over the last few years, but it really came through in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they came through. They came through in big moments as well. So Realmuto, he had a big game, but I think a big takeaway was Justin Verlander and his performance. He allowed 5 runs, and that was after the Astros grabbed a lead. You know, they set him up with the runs he needed, and he couldn't get to it. And I had a stat on Justin Verlander and how he was leaving his breaking balls in the upper 2/3 of the strike zone, which is not where you want to have it. He left 38.2% of his breaking balls in the upper 2/3 of the strike zone. League average is about 24%, so he was about 14% above league average with that. And you know, I looked at his regular season statistics, and when he left it in the upper 2/3 of the strike zone, left breaking balls in the upper 2/3 of the strike zone. He had a 350 slugging against, which, actually isn't too bad. But when he left it in the bottom third of the strike zone and below, hitters were slugging 189 off his breaking balls. So obviously he was able to have more success this season, not putting those breaking balls in the upper 2/3 of the zone. But he did a lot of that on Friday, and the two big hits, which were Alec Boehm's double and JT Realmuto's double. Those were both hanging breaking balls, and cost him a lot. So I think it was just kind of bad execution on Verlander's part.
Yeah, I mean, you broke it down pretty perfectly because you mentioned the Mariners start, it was high, Yankees start, it was low, Phillies started, it was back to being high, and those are the two starts that he got crushed in. And yeah, Verlander, there will be a Game 5 now, as we've learned, and Verlander will likely pitch. So I think that's definitely the big thing that you're going to need to watch for with him going into that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, definitely a key factor is keeping those breaking balls below the upper 2/3 of the strike zone, because it works for him. As Daniel prefaced, I did have a tweet about that where that number of breaking balls in the upper 2/3 of the strike zone, they were higher in the Mariners and Phillies start, and it was much lower in the Yankees start. So it was a matter of like 1 out of 5 instead of 2 out of 5.
Exactly.
Which is quite the difference. So yeah, Verlander gets bounced, and yeah, as you mentioned, battle of the bullpens, and surprisingly, the Phillies won. They did what they were not supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, the Astros had him right where they wanted him, no doubt.
For sure. The Astros against the Phillies bullpen. Well, first of all, the Phillies bullpen, they had 5 2/3 innings pitched, no runs, 4 hits, 2 walks, and 7 strikeouts on Friday night. And the Astros against the Phillies bullpen, they had 4 at-bats with runners in scoring position, but they were 0 for 4 in those situations. Big play in what, the bottom of the 9th?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It would have won the game. There was a man on second with 2 outs.
Yeah.
Altuve, I think, singled and then stole second to set up Pena. Was it Pena? Had to have been.
Yeah. I would guess.
Because it wasn't Alvarez.
Right. And...
Yeah, no, it was because Alvarez led off the next inning, so it had to have been Pena.
It was Jeremy Pena, correct. I'm looking at Baseball Reference. And, so Pena bloops one, right field. Nick Castellanos is coming in on it. He's not known for his defense, obviously, but he comes in and makes a sliding grab to many of our surprises. And, it was a great moment. I think everyone paying attention to Nick Castellanos and his defense was very surprised.
I was at a Halloween party for this game, and I was in a buddy of mine's room because that's the only place the game was on. It wasn't on like in the living room or whatever. And there ended up being like, I don't know, maybe like between 5 and 10 people in the room at this time, but everyone was actually socializing. Yeah. And like people were kind of half watching the game, just kind of keeping an eye on it. I was, of course, fully invested. And I screamed like, "Oh my God, Castellanos," at the top of my lungs, and everyone was like, "Oh, what happened?"
Yeah. I mean, obviously Castellanos is not known for his defense. Shout out to Mark Sheldon of MLB.com. I heard about this stat because Alex Spear of the Boston Globe, he retweeted it. Great Red Sox beat reporter. But Mark Sheldon said, according to StatCast, the ball had a 65% catch probability for a 3-star catch. But Castellanos was 5 for 55 on 3-star catch attempts this season.
That's fantastic.
So basically, like, Castellanos was like 9% on those types of balls, and he got it. He got it on that particular night to save the game. And then JT Realmuto homers the next inning.
Yeah, he did. JT Realmuto. So we had the 2-run double to tie it in the 5th. He had the go-ahead home run in the 10th inning. He had a WPA, a win probability added, of .569 in this game. That is the second highest win probability added in a World Series game by a catcher. Of course, going back to 1903. The only one who tops him would be Hal Smith. If you're familiar with the 1960 World Series Game 7, he had one plate appearance in that game. It was in the bottom of the 8th, 2-on, 2-out, and he hits a 3-run homer. That's the only more win probability added in a single game by a catcher.
Yeah.
And it came with one at bat.
Yeah, JT
Which
Realmuto
helps it out a lot.
JT Realmuto, I mean, he's so valuable to the Phillies team. I mean, definitely, like, indisputably right now, best catcher in baseball. I think he came off like a couple seasons where maybe he wasn't at his full potential, but this season, I think got 6 wins above replacement, at least on Fangraphs he did. Very solid offense, especially in the last, 3-4 months of the season. And, yeah, he's comes up big twice. Obviously the Phillies are not winning that game without JT Realmuto. You put down, what's the last note you put down for game
just
one?
Aledmys Diaz, LOL.
Yeah.
There was that, I think it was in the bottom of the 9th, it had to have been 9th, where Diaz clearly leaned into a pitch to get hit by it, and the umpire called it as such. It was on a 2-0 count, so kind of weird in that sense. But
Right.
yeah, the umpire called him back, and there was just so much complaining that I saw on Twitter about the call, and just it was A, about the call, and B, about the fact that he was leaning in.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them are legit. Like, hey man, I'm not gonna knock you if you think leaning into a pitch to try and get on base is your best bet to get on base, because Aledmys Diaz isn't the greatest hitter in the Astros lineup, and he definitely hasn't been all postseason. But don't be surprised when the umpire calls it, because he made it extremely obvious there.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ball was almost in the strike zone.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't know. It happened. He leaned in, called it, and that was that. And that's what should have happened. It was a good call. There's been a lot of good umpiring in this series.
Yeah,
it's been an underlying story.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the World Series brought out the best umpires.
For now, knock on wood.
For now, yeah, knock on wood. Yeah, it's been that was pretty incredible to see there. Yeah, pretty incredible to see. Yeah, very funny that he leaned in so hard. And yeah, if you're complaining about the call there, you're kind of just not making the right point. You're arguing the wrong things here.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, and yeah, Aledmys Diaz, he ends up grounding out to Alec Boehm to end the game, and Phillies win. Game 2 happens. In a similar fashion, the Astros get out on top. Funnily enough, they get out on top 5-0 again. It starts out with 3 runs in the first inning. Zack Wheeler really just did not have his best stuff.
No, he really didn't.
He was leaving a lot over the middle of the plate, and yeah, it just had bad results all over. And you were calling it out in real time too.
Oh, I very much was. The first pitch of the game was, I think it was in game day zone 5, which is middle.
Yeah.
And it was against Jose Altuve. He doubled. Second pitch was also right around there, and it was a double to Jeremy Pena. Alvarez, he left one up to Alvarez, who hit it off the Crawford box's wall for a double. Wheeler's location earlier in that one was just not there at all.
Yeah, and it resulted in, I think the first three batters
all reached base via double. The Astros were the first team in World Series history, I believe, to start a game with 3 consecutive extra base hits.
We love that.
Yeah,
that's a good stat. Yeah, 3 consecutive doubles. That scored 2 runs, and eventually there was an error that scored the 3rd run. So not all charged to Wheeler there, or at least earned runs wise. But yeah, Wheeler. He ended up shutting it down for the next 3 innings, and then allowed a single to Jose Altuve and then a 2-out home run, 2-run home run to Alex Bregman to make it 5-0. Zack Wheeler on the night, he allowed 18 batted balls. 11 of them were hard hit. 61% of his batted balls were hard hit in Game 2. And those 11 hard hit balls against him were tied for the most hard hit balls that Wheeler has allowed in the StatCast era. And
Wow.
that includes 151 outings from Zack Wheeler, and that was tied for the most hard hit balls he's allowed. 7 of those hard hit balls came in Game Day Zone 5, which is, as you mentioned, middle. So, whenever he put it right down the middle, the Astros took advantage, which is exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah, I mean, they did exactly that. I mean, the Astros, like, that's such a good hitting team, and they have been, not just, like, power-wise, but contact-wise as well. That's such a dynamic offense, and you really can't be leaving balls out like that. He had it coming. Kinda.
Yeah, and, good on the Astros for, they had a very tough loss to start the series. They came back out like nothing ever happened and scored 3 runs in the next inning. Just very good from them. And then Framber Valdez, he had a spectacular night as well. He's had a spectacular postseason in general. He threw 6 1/3, 1 run, 4 hits, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts. Also, with Framber Valdez, he's going to give up ground balls. He had 12 batted balls, 9 of them were ground balls, so that's 75%. You had a good stat on Framber Valdez as well.
So this is very much a StatCast stat.
Yes.
So Framber Valdez threw 104 pitches in last night's game, Saturday night's game, and we're recording this on Sunday. But 49% of them, 51 of those 104 pitches, were thrown in what's called the shadow zones on Baseball Savant. So Baseball Savant has a very broken down strike zone where it's heart, shadow, chase, and waste. So heart means it's the heart of the plate. You don't want to throw it there for obvious reasons. It's very hittable. Shadows are around the edges of the strike zone. Chase is, pretty self-explanatory. It's a pitch you throw on, 0-2, 1-2 to try and get a swing and miss that you're confident a guy won't square up if it's located a little bit wrong. And then there's waste, of course, which is just, it's like 50 cents first pitch.
Yeah.
You don't want to go there. Out of these 4, the league WOBA was the lowest on the shadow zones this year. It was at only 265 was the league WOBA on shadow zone pitches.
Yeah, which is about 60 points below average.
So all of this is just to say that's where you want to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Almost every time. 49% of the time Framber Valdez threw there. That's the highest percentage in any World Series game with 100 pitches since 2013.
Yeah.
So it was a really impressive outing. He was locating beautifully. He had a solid line, like Chris mentioned, 6 1/3, 1 earned run, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts. And that was, and just to make my point even clearer, of those 51 pitches, 23 of them, so 45.1%, resulted in a called strike or a whiff.
Nice.
His called strike and whiff percentage was 45%.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's a very solid breakdown because a lot of the time, like, it's very hard to describe like how well a pitcher's doing with location, with statistics, and the whole shadow thing really provides a whole new element of like, literally he was around the edges more than anyone since 2013.
I'll probably make like a video cut up of every pitch he threw there that he got a swing and miss on.
Yeah, I love that.
I'll explain all that.
But we mentioned Framber Valdez. He had a great outing, but that did not come without its controversy.
Yes, you can go ahead on this one.
The internet's a fun place.
It really is.
The most popular tweet was from Josh Reynolds, appears to be a Phillies fan, who had his video got 6.5 million views, along with about 2,800 retweets and 18,000 likes. And it's basically Framber Valdez, like, he's wiping his hands. He's kind of he's putting his left hand on his right hand. And you could take away that maybe there's a foreign substance thing. And he said, it's the caption that gets me, as you know. He says, I repeat, there's no way I'll ever be convinced that the Astros are still not cheating at home, which is...
They're still not cheating.
Yeah.
He worded it wrongly, too.
Yeah. it triggers me a little bit because I'm so tired of like I think the whole Astros cheating narrative is
So dumb.
it's very tired now.
It's
very
also
tired
like
of it.
I'm at the point now where it's like, the narrative was, yeah, teams cheated, but the Astros cheated worse. Like they were more egregious than everyone else. At some point, it isn't like, yeah, you should be cheating worse. Like if
Yeah.
you're gonna cheat.
Yeah.
Like, aren't we trying to win here?
True.
Like if you don't half-ass it if you're
Yeah,
gonna cheat
true.
for any moral high ground. Like you're still breaking the rules. Like might as well just destroy them.
Yeah, but yeah, so like, there's that thing with the foreign substances. I feel like every playoff, every playoff game, or yeah, every year in the playoffs, there's like at least one thing of like, oh, this guy went to his. It already happened with Joe Musgrove this year.
Yep.
It was like, oh, this guy. But, I mean, if you look at Baseball Savant, his spin rates weren't up crazy significantly. They were less up than Aaron Nola's, as you mentioned before the show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, what did you think about the whole thing?
It was just, I mean, like, I don't care. Maybe he was cheating. His spin rates were not astronomically up, but Aaron Nola's were in game one, just for context. I don't care. If he was cheating, he was cheating. Like, it's not gonna hit. It's never gonna, like, the cheating thing will never hit the same as it did in 2019 to 20 anyway.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And at that point, if it comes out that he was, then we should just blame the umpires because they checked him every inning.
Right.
And
Yeah.
they didn't find anything.
Blame the
so.
enforcement of it. I mean, it is funny that like where the umpire checks have gone from like June 2021 to now,
Yep.
it's much different. However, like, if the guy's got freaking pine tar or spider tack on his hand, I feel like your average umpire is going to be able to tell.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. And we saw there's also video evidence of him getting checked. Like that happened. We saw that.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, it'll happen. Do you want to get into the perfect game that was game 2?
Yeah. Pat Hoberg, elite umpire, as we saw. 0 missed calls on balls and strikes. Legendary.
I mean, yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Yeah. It's pretty,
Period.
It's pretty beautiful. I mean, we do know that the World Series is the best of the best, but not ever to this extent.
No. I mean, it's never happened before in the history of the ump scorecard account. We've never seen a perfect game before, and we saw it in the World Series.
Yeah, it's so funny. I've seen the photoshops of like him on Don Larson's body. It's hilarious.
I saw a Photoshop. You know how Foolish Baseball tweets that picture of Felix Hernandez
Yeah.
every time? Someone put that with a catcher's or with an umpire's mask on.
I saw that too. It's really phenomenal. Yeah. Yeah, we love that. I mean,
Very cool.
what better can you ask for, really?
Yeah,
You
no,
can't ask for literally can't ask for anything better.
Yeah, you'll love to see it. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's you love to see it, but yeah. So that happened, and now
Now we're looking ahead.
the series has shifted to Citizens Bank Park.
We got a Game 4 matchup in Game 3.
That's true.
Noah Syndergaard versus who is it?
Lance McCullers Jr.
Jr., who, by Astros standards, has not been great, even though he started the 18-inning game that was 0-0 until the 18th.
Yeah.
He pitched. I mean, he got BABIP'd, I guess, in Yankee Stadium, you could say.
Yeah, you could argue.
He's definitely, I think, miles better than Noah Syndergaard right now. But CBP is CBP.
Yeah, and yeah, that's like the element. That's just you can't ignore that. That's a factor in this series. I mean,
Yeah,
we've just
look
seen
at
it.
what happened to the Braves. Look at what happened to the Padres. Like those teams couldn't compete. I mean, the Padres did for a little bit, but they really couldn't compete.
Yeah, exactly. Like, especially like, I mean, that's what's going to be a key with the Astros here is to not let the Phillies score early or score first because, I mean, what was it? Game 3 is Kyle Schwarber leadoff home run. I mean, the wheels were turning for the Phillies after
Game
that.
4 was scoring 3 after giving up 4.
Yes. Like the crowd was always active and, definitely helps when you have when you have the Phillies scoring early on. So, I mean, that's going to be a big responsibility for Lance McCullers, Christian Javier, and Justin Verlander in games 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, kind of surprised by the sequencing of how these matchups are going. Like,
It has been interesting.
like Christian Javier.
Especially for how much rest these teams had. For the Phillies, it makes a little more sense because they did use Ranger Suarez out of the bullpen in game 1. But yeah, considering the rest these teams had, they are kind of hitting us with some wild cards in the rotation order.
Yeah, like Christian Javier, like I don't know. I think he should be getting a little more respect. But I think
you have a chance to go up 2-1. You might as well put the best guy you have out there.
right. I think it's more just like Lance McCullers has more experience. So I think Dusty's going with him.
Yeah.
That's just seems to be the case. Yeah, Syndergaard going. I mean, the only argument I can have for that is like, I know the Astros have Yordan Alvarez, but I guess most of their offensive contributors are righties with Bregman, Altuve, and like even Jeremy Pena right now. Their catchers have always been righties, and who else? Yuli Gurriel. Like it's mostly a righty lineup, and even with Yordan Alvarez, his numbers against lefties are still really good. So
Exactly.
I guess you don't have to throw Suarez out there. But I don't know. I mean, Syndergaard didn't look bad in his one start this postseason.
He didn't look great, but he didn't look bad. You're right.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens there. I think it'll be a fun game with Game 3.
I'm excited. I'm excited to see World Series CBP, no doubt.
Yeah, it's like, especially like first game, energy is going to be there. That's why, like,
Especially because they're not down 2-0 either. Like there's a lot at stake in Game 3.
yeah, right. Like they could definitely.
Like in Yankee Stadium, it felt like, in Game 3 they were playing for their season, and it got out of hand quickly. Like, even if it gets out of hand in CBP, like, the series is very much still attainable.
Absolutely, yeah. Big time there. So, yeah, you have McCullers, Syndergaard, then you have Javier versus Suarez, and then you have Verlander versus Nola. I think, in at least 2 out of 3 of those games, there's definitely a clear... starting pitching advantage. However, that's not what the game's all about.
No.
A lot of it is just momentum and home field advantage.
And we could be seeing some home field advantage in this one.
Absolutely. So yeah, I definitely see how I see it going is I think Phillies win Game 3. Astros win Game 4, and Phillies win Game 5.
So one of my bold takes before the series was if the Phillies win Game 4, they're taking the series. I made that prediction under the assumption that it was going to be Javier versus either Syndergaard or Falter. Now that it's going to be Javier Suarez, which is still favorable in the Astros case, but a little more generous for the Phillies, I think I am going to rescind that take. I'm going to have... Although I am still going to have the Phillies winning games 3 and 5 and losing 4. I don't think they beat Christian Javier. I'll take him in Game 3, though. That atmosphere is going to help that a lot. And then it'll go back to Nola versus Verlander in Game 5.
Yeah.
And I don't believe we've seen Verlander pitch on the road all postseason. So, he's already been struggling at home in the postseason. I'd love to see if the crowd gets to him on the road or if he locks it down.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a weird thing with... Justin Verlander, I think you mentioned over the weekend, he has the worst World Series ERA, minimum 30 innings pitched.
Yep.
Which is crazy to think about because, we've kind of thought of him as a big game guy a lot of the time, but
yeah,
sometimes it's just not the case.
It's weird because he always just dominates the Yankees in the postseason no matter what.
Yeah, that's true.
No matter what team he's on.
Yeah, I feel like, and also I feel like he's got like a good LCS resume.
Yeah, I mean, like in the 2019 playoffs, Kevin Cash, after getting dealt against by Verlander, said, "We got Verlandered."
Right. Yeah.
Like that actually happened. He has a postseason ERA of 3.69.
Yeah.
And that's with a 6.07 World Series ERA. Yeah, in 80 innings pitched in the ALCS, he has a 3.01 ERA. in 79 innings pitched in the division series, a 3.08 ERA.
Yeah.
Like, he is a big game pitcher until it's the biggest game.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what it is. You have to.
He's a pretty big game pitcher, not like a big game pitcher though.
Yeah. He's like, like 85 out of 100 intensity type pitcher.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll see if that.
When like the second brightest lights are on, he's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Not the, he can get in with the incandescent lighting, but the fluorescent lights,
No.
it's too much.
Nah.
Too much for Verlander. But yeah, so we shall see how he fares in Game 5, which will happen. But yeah, anything more before we wrap up here?
I think that's it for me.
Yeah. That's it. It's a shorter one for us because, I mean, we just had a free day and there was no baseball on, so figured we'd recap games 1 and 2 for sure. So always good to talk baseball with each other here. That does it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. If you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran. And follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking about the World Series. We will see you then.
This conversation is over.